Lazarus was diagnosed in 2018, and in January of 2020, his ALS-FRS score was 27, and this month it is 45. So that's huge. We did put a link to Tony's protocol. Please go to healingals.org. It's already posted, and if you click on ALS blog, you will see it. Tonight, I'll switch the link, the meeting link, to his protocol link, so you'll have it in two places. I just want to really honor Tony. It is not easy to heal ALS, okay? This is so important. It is just, this is not a walk in the park, but you have a choice of crawling into a hole and giving up. And even the people that do some of the things, we find that they have a very better quality of life. Often they will stabilize and not getting worse. But anyway, to reverse, it takes work, and Tony has done it. He's done the research, and he's doing the journey in both his mind and his body. And we're so honored, because the reason that Lazarus is here is that he is here to help you find your journey. He is sharing his journey so that you guys can say, oh, maybe I need to do that, or oh, maybe I need to do this. And you're going to get from him and from other people that are sharing their reversals, you take the bits and pieces that make sense to you and you add them to your own personal protocol. So there is no one answer to ALS. We're not medical professionals, neither is Lazarus. Please, you know, this is your journey, and we're very honored to have him share his journey.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the introduction, Tish. Yeah, it's a bit crazy, really, because this wasn't my plan at all. Like 3 years ago, I was in college doing a master's in teaching, planning to go into secondary education, and I had a lot of experience in teaching beforehand, so I was really looking forward to it. I'd already been dealing with the symptoms a good bit, not knowing what was causing it. And within a month of starting college, symptoms caught up on me again, and I was having a lot of difficulty with mobility. It took, I'd already been seeing a neurologist since 2014. So I was diagnosed finally in December 18, and it was confirmed by Dr. Bedlack 2 years later. So this photograph here, and the one on the left, where there's a lot of where my right leg was at its worst state. I actually had dystrophy or atrophy in the leg going back to 2009. And the picture on the right is my leg today. It's my leg, the right leg now above the knee is thicker now than it has been in at least 4 years, which I'm really happy about, because that's old loss. It's not just recent loss that I've got back. It's old loss, and I'm going to be telling you what I think has really contributed to that. Yeah, so one of the things that has helped me a lot is that long before diagnosis, I was paying attention to the symptoms I had of immobility, or I had dropped foot from 2014, and a friend of mine taught me the heel toe step. And really for 2 or 3 years, even today, I still practice the heel toe step when I need to. And that really made a big contribution. I didn't know what was causing the early symptoms. I was emotionally very edgy and reactive as well, and I had the twitching going on. So in case it was something psychosomatic, I decided to cut down on things which were stressful. So I started to make social, personal lifestyle changes, then increased my meditation and did counseling and group work to, just to cover the bases, to cover the possibilities. So yeah, it really stood to me, because I in that time I did more work on healing past traumas, particularly from growing up in an alcoholic home. In 2016, I was pegging badly on the right foot. This was following a 6-month cessation of cannabis. And I hadn't any diagnosis. My ankle and toes didn't move anymore. And I went back on cannabis and just kept practicing the heel toe step, and it was months and months. And I got walking back, not perfectly, but I wasn't just pegging it. I had proper movement in my steps. And I think it's really important, because I realized recently one of the differences between myself and some other people is that before diagnosis, I was making some improvement on my symptoms. So after diagnosis, and when we knew that that's what was wrong with me, my mind wasn't shut in a box. I knew it was possible to fight against this. And this is, just want to play this for you. Just because it's important to notice the beauty around us, and listening to nature, I find, brings me into the moment. And a lot of the healing that I've practiced is about coming into the moment, coming into the present, and meeting the difficulties and the challenges in the present in a way which is healthy for us. So that's where I really talked about last week, is healing the mind and the emotions. And somebody said to me, it's a diverse process. There's no simple answer. There's no a simple book or simple instruction, and it's just doing that thing. We emphasize on different things at different times. But I realized that to get my body into a healthier state, because despite, having something which, supposedly can't be cured, what I could do is to get the body into a healthier state. So to get my body into a state in which it would be resting and recovering. And for that, I need to get the mind into a healthier state. And that's really what I talked about last week, and noticing things that are facts about our existence, and using those facts in a positive way. Like the fact that we're all alive. We'll all agree, I'm sure, that we're all alive. And since we're alive, there's always a possibility that we can make a healing choice, a healthier choice with what we're doing here and now. We can learn to rest and to breathe from our belly, and to initiate the healing process within ourselves. And it's not just choosing it once, but it's choosing it continuously in a small way. So I had very, very difficult circumstances. I lost the support of my family, except for my son, who had a lot of difficulties with it, and he went abroad. It was very, very, very hard on him, losing somebody who had been very, very stable throughout his childhood and his teenagers. And then I was turned into a shaky personality. So it was very hard on him. So I didn't have the support of the rest of my family. I lost my capacity to work. The concentration it took for me to do things was very difficult. Even 6 months ago, I wouldn't actually be able to be here with you presenting like this. Even the last 6 months, I've made enough difference to my mind to be able to function and communicate. I became, before final diagnosis, I became homeless, and I was in an emergency accommodation. So the possibility of healing during that year was just to practice responding in a calm way. Because if any of us respond in a stressed way, then we're responding in an unhealthy way. So learning to respond in a calm way, it helps to induce the healing process. and that's a lot to do with the healing process physically in the body is dependent on that as well. But the body is also dependent on what we put into it, our food, and I found that our gut health is a real pillar of difference in the fight against ALS or MND. I was aware of this a long time. I'd had, I can't think of that word. I'd had some gut problems in the past, so I'd had some experience doing that. And so these are some of the key things which I found worked for me was avoiding processed foods. Very simple. I found high protein foods were much better. It was easier on the digestion. I come from Ireland, if you haven't guessed from my accent. And we have grass-fed cows here. So I actually eat a lot of steak. It works with my digestion. It makes me feel very comfortable and warm, and I never have any bad reactions to it. In other parts of the world, the beef is different, and people are different. So what's really important is to avoid things which will aspirate in your windpipe, crumbly things and stuff like that. One crumb that went into my windpipe ended up being the beginning of a 3-month period between the hospital and the nursing home with complications, and so I became very, very careful about what I was eating, so that, you know, the chances of something going down the wrong way would be avoided. And so it's simple caution. And in the same way, I avoid any foods or anything now which causes bloating, indigestion, constipation, acid reflux, gas, any symptoms in the stomach. And you know, I've thought on one meditation week I had where they were serving porridge in the morning. It was very tasty. So I had it 2 mornings in a row. By the second afternoon, my legs were shooting off into cramps. I was in a desperate state of mind. I was literally all over the place, and the porridge had turned into very bloat, gave me a lot of bloating. And once I shifted that on, you know, eating some oranges, and was able to, you know, pass it on, my symptoms died down again. So there's a really, really close connection between the gut health and our overall health. I'll do the medications first. So I've broken it into 3 different stages. The pre-diagnosis, after diagnosis, and the final medications that I was on. Pre-diag, because, you know, I've included here because I was on cannabis for the twitching since 2013 or so. And I had mixed use of it. I was smoking it sometimes in capsules, and wasn't really treating it as a medication, even though it was helping me with the twitching and fasciculations. And I noticed mobility improvement. One of the periods that I developed the pegging on my right leg is when I was on Lyrica for fasciculations for 6 months. And so I did what the neurologist said. Came off the cannabis, went on to the Lyrica, developed mobility problems, and the Lyrica just gave me chronic depression. I'd never experienced depression like that before. So I just cut it and went right back on to cannabis. After diagnosis, I started to take cannabis capsules, and I had a regular supply of them. The quantity of cannabis in the capsules did vary at different times over that year. It was between 50 to 150 milligrams of THC dominant oil per day. So I was in capsules diluted with coconut oil. And that year I did have a slow but steady improvement. At the end of that year, I was back in hospital again after one crumb going down the wrong way and the consequences. I was also on Relvar inhaler for the smoking, was the steroids to help the lungs expand again, and on melatonin for improved sleep. I did try sleeping tablets, traditional sleeping tablets, but I woke up with laboured breathing. So it put me into such a deep sleep, I wasn't able to breathe properly. I still have some of that sleep apnea, but it's not too bad at the moment. And the final medications which I'm on today, yeah, I'm still using the inhaler, still using the cannabis, but I've changed what I'm doing with the cannabis. Now it's around 50% CBD, 50% THC, approximately 100 milligrams a day, in capsules, and with coconut oil. And that's given me a nice balance. Before, when it was THC dependent, I was experiencing more high effects, side effects of it, which aren't the worst side effects in the world, but it's nice to be a bit more grounded. And the CBD seems to regulate the high from the THC much better. I was on morphine as well, which was, I had in the larynx, had larynxospasm. So my larynx would go into spasm, and then I would be coughing to open it up again. And it was chronic, and it was completely debilitating. I wouldn't leave the hospital until this would actually been dealt with. And they're doing the wrong thing for me in hospital and making me much worse. So in hospital, I ended up going down to 66 kilos, which is the lowest that I've ever been. And I got a good respiratory consultant who took me off that because it was actually killing me. I went on morphine at a very low level. It relaxes sometimes the respiratory conditions, and it relaxed the larynx, so I wasn't getting this spasm going on. And I did that for 3 months, and it was enough for my larynx to heal so I could talk without having spasm. I used other standard medication for dry eyes, gut and bowel issues, microdosing, which has helped with communication a lot. And I take ivermectin now as well for COVID. So that's a week's supply. It took me about 4 attempts to get the right little pods for pills, because most of them don't take vitamin pills. So it was well worth it. It's great having everything organized for a week. I'll focus on the medicinal cannabis. It has a lot of properties. I think it's very rightly can be called a neurological healer. It's an improved medication even in Ireland for multiple sclerosis and epilepsy, which are both involve problems with the motor neurons. And it works successfully for them. So, knowing that, why doctors wouldn't prescribe it for MND, for ALS, there's no good medical reason why not. They did a 500-person stage 3 trial for multiple sclerosis for a pharmaceutical cannabis called Sativex, which was 50% cannabis extract and 50% CBD extract. The conclusions of the trial were that cannabis is neuroregenerative and neuroprotective, and there's no damaging side effects. And you can easily be stepped into it, and the amounts increased, so don't start it at a high level. Cannabis is, has shown us that part of the human body which responds to it is now named after it. It's a part of the neurological system, to say the least. It's called the endocannabinoid system, or the internal cannabinoid system, because what they found was that there was receptors in the body that the cannabinoids from the plant were triggering. And in fact, we make cannabinoids inside our body naturally. And I often wonder to what degree our endocannabinoid system is damaged in ALS. Getting cannabis working as a medication makes such a huge difference that I can't not believe that it's either damaged from the illness, or boosting it just gives the ability for the body to fight the illness so much better. The endocannabinoid system regulates the thyroid and the adrenal glands, immune and non-autoimmune system, motor neuron functions, and mood. It's huge. It's one of the older parts of our body. If you look at our body from a evolutionary perspective, it goes back something like 600 million years, long before we were even mammals. So it's a bit of the science of the body, which we don't actually know very well, because we look at ourselves more as animals than plants. So medical cannabis, how to use it. Go back there. But the effects on the ALS symptoms, this is from my own experiences, and I've read other accounts as well. It improves motor neuron function. Now, I'll just put in a disclaimer. Immediately after taking cannabis, you might be in a more relaxed state and have a lower motor neuron function, because you're actually in more of a state of recovery than in the state of activity. So that's a temporary thing, and something I've experienced many times. So sometimes it's taking cannabis and it's relaxing. And that's what you need to do. And when you've recuperated, then you're active, and find that it actually reduces muscle fatigue, so that when using cannabis, I can last longer doing an activity than I can without it. It reduces fasciculations and tremors. I've had times when I was in public somewhere, my legs are beginning to shake because I've just been going for too long, and I'll take some capsules. Within 15 minutes, the tremors will actually die down, and I can just stand, and I'm okay. I'm not shaking around the place. Really incredible. And the same with fasciculations. You can actually, instead of the fasciculations going really fast, sometimes you just can feel them building up over several seconds, releasing and calming down again. So it's really incredible. It helps to stabilize mood. It's anti-anxiety and anti-depression. And, I think in the future will be part of our cannabis medication will be adjusting the amount of THC and CBD. So we'll have one which is more suitable for anxiety or more suitable for depression. At the moment, the ideal prescription that I've experimented with is about half and half. FICO full extract cannabis oil, which is 50-50 THC CBD. And which is possible because you can get pure CBD oil and pure THC oil and mixed two together. And, anything from 20 to 200 milligrams a day of cannabis oil, I think it can be recommended. It really depends on the person. Some people have a high tolerance. Some people have really low tolerance. And I do consider that maybe it's necessary at some stage to have a high level of it as well. I did push the boat out, and I was hitting the 200 or close to the 200 milligrams a day mark at one stage for a while, just to see what it would do. So really a lot of what I'm saying is my own experiment and that. There is a ALS specialist up in Scotland who has enabled a lot of late stage ALS patients access cannabis as an end of life treatment. And what they've done is that and after being on it for several months, they've come off some of their other medication and had a second lease of life. And she's done a fantastic presentation, which I've seen on it. So this knowledge is there, it is out there. The early supplements that I was taking really before diagnosis was vitamin C and this protein powder, which was really, really excellent protein powder. It's very hard to get now, unfortunately. But I had so many different things in this protein powder that I think it really contributed to me not continuing to fall into illness, or at least to maintain me in some ways which I wouldn't have been maintained otherwise. So this is what I was taking after a diagnosis when I came out of hospital into my new home in January 19. So at this stage, for the previous year, I pretty much knew that I had motor neuron disease. In 2017 was the first EMG, and that showed extensive motor neuron damage in the right leg. In February 18, I had motor neuron damage. They found it in my arms, and Professor Orla Hardman diagnosed me with anxiety. Motor neuron damage in 3 limbs, and she says I've anxiety. I'll never trust neurologists again. Well, not all of them. There are excellent neurologists and doctors out there as well, thankfully. So when I found out about the motor neuron damage, even though they weren't giving me an official diagnosis, I still was realistic about it and started to accumulate what information I could in order to fight it. But that year I was also becoming homeless as well, so I really didn't put that knowledge into effect until I had somewhere, proper to live. So this is what I was taking. NAC, which is, I can't remember exactly what it's an abbreviation for now. And that seems to be quite a key thing. I increased the NAC dosage at one stage for some other symptom. I can't remember what it is. I think it might have been for painful eyes. But NAC is something which I think we can look at increasing dosage of at times. Ashwanda, which is a herb for nervousness and anxiety from India. I really was rather chaotic in my approach to what I was taking. I was getting information from really anywhere, and it was very much sort of slapstick. There was no great plan to it. I might look at somebody's protocol and just go, I'll take that. Or I'll read it and go, okay, I'm not taking anything for the liver, and liver is, there's liver problems sometimes. So let's give the liver some support. Or maybe there's heavy metal problems. So the cardiochelate with EDTA, that's for the liver and for helping to take out the heavy metals out. Honey, because it's such a curative thing. Probiotics to help the gut. Vitamin T. Started getting into my teas then as well. My medicinal Chinese mushrooms, reishi, chaga, and cistus tea, which is a herb for the stomach. And I think that the chaga and reishi teas, chaga particularly, which is a really powerful antioxidant, 30 times stronger than green tea. And I drink about 2 liters of that a day, of not just that, with reishi and cistus. I drink about 2 liters of that a day. So I'm really trying to flood my body with a different, to change its environment. Because if we actually sort out the antioxidant problem sufficiently, it's very hard for the disease to make progression. I got into smoothies as well because I was using them to take in some of the powders. So I was taking hydrolyzed collagen as well as protein powder. I did cut back at that. I was taking a full measure of each, which maybe was too much. Later on, I developed a cyst, which I think I was taking a bit too much, so I reduced it a little bit. Olive leaf extract is really excellent, but I can't remember what for. You'll have to forgive me. I'm not a nutritionist, so sometimes I remember some things better than others. One of the things that I've been doing as well is I've been taking my water from a spring well not far from where I live. And so I'm actually drinking, spring water all the time. And I don't know how much that contributes, but I'm sure that it contributes a lot. This is a picture on the right is of a teapot, and on top of the container there's that silver thing, and that's the filter. So the herbs go in there. So the herbs are really sitting in the hot water, and I just keep putting more herbs into it, and as the day goes by, so I'm just getting something stronger and stronger. So this is what I'm on now in terms of the supplements. So some of it's the same: NAC, ashwagandha, cardiochelate. I've added vitamin B12, huperzine A, which is for memory, CoQ10, which I think is for the motor neuron cells. I've added into my tea, I've added lion's mane, which is for the brain, and ginkgo biloba, which is for the brain as well. My smoothies now are getting a bit on the complicated side. There's so much in it. So there's frozen berries, ginger, hydrolyzed collagen, protein powder, and I don't have to worry about writing this down to be available. Olive leaf extract, spring well water, vitamin C, glutathione, which is for creating, it's related to the antioxidants and managing that. Creatine for the muscles as well. Nicotinamide or riboside, if that's how you pronounce it, which is for the motor neuron cells. Modified citrus pectin, which is for the liver. Phosphatidylcholine, I can't sing the praises of phosphatidylcholine high enough. As far as I understand, phosphatidylcholine is extracted from coconut oil. It's one of the things that coconut oil breaks down to. The impact, I've only been taking that for, I don't know, 6-8 months. And I picked it because I thought that, well, I wonder about what was causing the motor neuron disease. Okay, it's happening in the central nervous system. But is that some toxin which has gotten into it, whether it's a heavy metal or mold or virus, has gotten in there and upset things? So they're not supposed to get in there. And so they've gotten in there because the cell wall in somewhere in the spine is weak or damaged. And phosphatidylcholine is one of the things that you can take to improve the strength of the cell wall. So that one was really strategic. But what I didn't know was that we use it in the brain as well. So one day after I started to take phosphatidylcholine, I remembered where I put something. I started crying because I couldn't remember where I put anything for, I don't know, years really. So that's a big thing. I take elm tree extract and pine bark OPC. One of them's for the gut, and I don't remember the other one. Korean and Siberian ginseng. They're two different plants. They're completely different. They're not variations of one family. And yeah, they contribute something to my health as well. And aloe vera, which is great for the gut, and it's great for the skin, because I dry skin a lot, and sometimes very itchy as well. And aloe vera has been really, really good. So you can see that there's just a lot of healthy things in what I'm taking. And it wasn't to take something that's going to cure ALS. It was to take things which are going to make me healthier, because the healthier my body can be, the better my capacity is for fighting the illness. That's what I was aiming at. I'm still kind of I'm still a bit shocked actually at how much my ALS, my score has changed in a reasonably short period of time. I do a lot of other things as well, and I mean, everything I do in my life is commitment to healing this. So yeah, that's a picture of the big smoothie. It takes a little while to drink, and I take my time drinking it well. There's no hurry. Take the time drinking. So I do big gulps of this, then my throat will start to, my swallow will start to go slow. So I just take my time, and yeah, that's a lot of a lot of management. It took a long time to get here. It didn't just happen overnight, and it was just one step at a time. That was it. Most importantly, how am I for time? I have to remember where I am. Oh yeah, okay. So the physical exercise is really important. The approach that I've had is coinciding with mental health and with reducing stress and strain. So the aim is to stimulate the muscles without straining them. So when we're physically exercising, lifting things, when we're pushing the muscles, we're putting on a maximum firing rate with the neurons. So if we have those neurons are damaged as well, then I thought there's a good chance this excess firing is going to be killing the neurons quicker. So I chose to go underneath. So for me, it's not a case of making more effort. It's a case of making less effort. So when I was walking and my legs would be turning into tree trunks, trying to take steps forward, I would just go, relax, go more slowly, go quieter, go easier, and calm it down, calm everything down. I would be doing that with my breathing and techniques I explained last week. And then I can just keep on walking in a relaxed state, and the legs could do that. And so it made a sense in terms of physical capacity as well. And I had the supports were CBD and cannabis, spelled wrong there, meditation and breathing techniques. But the aim was to exercise within the range of comfort. Normally we think of when we're stretching, we stretch things as far as we can, stretch, but that's putting things under max pressure. We want to underdo it. We want gentle exercise, because all we're trying to do is stimulate the muscle. Because when we're stimulating the muscle, we're stimulating its health, and so that has informed all the movements and the exercises, and it's really come back. I'd like problems holding my toothbrush. I was beginning to use my left hand with the fork for the plate and stuff because my right was so long, and now I've got nearly full strength in my right hand, so it's really come back, and it's not by making a hard effort, it's by being committed to making a soft effort. So I've really, I think, explained that. So yeah, the range of comfort stretching is until you meet a small resistance. You're only trying to do a small resistance, that's all, not a big resistance. And then we can move it. And when we do that in a small way, in a small resistance, the experience isn't stressful and it's not straining. And then we have the experience of using our body in a way in which we're not straining it, in a way which it's relaxing. And that's really, really important for our state of mind and recovery. This is the Chi machine. Oh, I think that one's in the wrong place. Anyway, physical exercise, the heel toe step. This cured my my dropped foot. Cured my drop foot and cannabis. I was taking cannabis as well. And so if you imagine your foot shaped like a banana, then instead of slapping down, you're trying to roll forwards, rolling like a banana, and the way that a banana is bent, you're rolling forwards. So you're coming on the back of the heel, rolling forward and pushing off with your toes. And of course, I couldn't do this when I started trying to do it, but that was the effort, was to slowly and just to keep leaning into that immobility. And because when we've got our weight there doing the exercise, and so when we're leaning into it with our weight, and it stimulates the health of the whole body when we're actually able to walk properly. So that was really, really key, was actually walking. So even if it's just a few steps that we're able to take, it's still just to try and to concentrate for those few steps, to go slowly, to try and get a curving moment, so that way our ankle moves, our toes move, they push as well. I've done this using a mobility frame, a walker, so that was taking my weight, so all my weight wasn't going on my feet. I've done it this way at times, but still that movement is being exercised. So, to fight this illness, we need to stimulate the body's health. Throat exercises, I thought was a really good place for people. I've had some problems with it. So 3 throat veils and exercises for them. The one which kicked me off was the epiglottis closing to fail properly and mucus coming down, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, choking because I couldn't breathe. And I immediately gave up all dairy the next day. That was the first thing I did. And then I imagined, what can I actually, is there something, because I'm used to it now at this stage, trying to find some way of stimulating the weaknesses in the body and stimulating it in a healthy way. Now, is there something I can actually do here? And it took me a while, and I realized that gargling is actually opening and closing the epiglottis. And so I spent a while doing dry gargle until I could actually feel it moving. I could actually feel it moving. And then I put some water and honey in, and it worked. I got the swallow, the epiglottis, it came back. The swallow muscles, I've experienced a weakness there. Again, I'll swallow without food when I'm relaxed, so that try and I won't eat with if I'm tired. If I'm tired, I don't eat. It's really, really simple. I just don't eat, just to make things easy, and so that I'm reducing the risk of something going wrong. I had the weakening of the vocal cords. I was down to very hoarse, whispery voice. Again, what can you do for the vocal cords? Actually, you can. And simple humming, which started off with just, I was only able to hum for maybe 3 seconds or something like that, because it meant more control over my volume of air. And at that stage, I had very little volume of air because my chest didn't actually move. All my breathing was down in the belly. So humming goes along, and it is literally our vocal cords vibrating. So just doing a little bit every so often is stimulating the vocal cords. And with the face, because I remember when, I was just speaking like, my mouth was just a small O kind of shape. I couldn't smile very much or or yeah, and I massaged it with, I couldn't use my fingers either, so I massaged it with my knuckles and that, just again, just to stimulate. I wasn't talking to enough people either at the time, but there really are things that we can do. I mean, breathing then is yeah, I mean, it's a biggie, because the more we can do to prevent ourselves from going on machines, or if we can actually stimulate ourselves to come off machines, it's a massive thing. You all know. I fortunately I had learned breathing exercises earlier in life, and so I had some experience of controlling the breath and working with it. And the main thing that I suggest is belly breathing, because when it takes so much effort to breathe in the chest, all we've got left is the belly. And if we're not belly breathing, then we're on the machine. So if we're doing belly breathing, which we can do without actually using the chest, so it's just our belly moving out and the air is moving into the bottom part of our lungs, then there's no carbon dioxide buildup. So that's one of that's one problem solved. Belly breathing, it actually uses less energy than chest breathing, and it induces the parasympathetic system. It induces a state of relaxing and recuperation. So it's a big thing. And I think that even if you're on a machine, if you can concentrate on feeling the air moving into your body, if you can feel it moving into your belly at all, and make any effort you can to work with that effort, so that you're doing what you can, and then there's a feel good factor in making the efforts that we can make. What happened then was that after I was recovering, my health consolidated a bit. I found that it was my chest, my lack of breathing in the chest was really holding me back, because I was able to walk a little bit, but I couldn't walk and talk. It needed too much energy. So I started breathing from the belly, and then breathing that actually up into the chest. So I was breathing into the belly and then breathing up and expanding out into the chest, because my chest wasn't working. So it took months and months of just sitting around at different times and bring this up into the chest, so that the chest starts to get activated, and it worked. It's worked. The chi machine. Oh, hang on. I know what I was wanted to show you. I forgot what this was for. So this is how I used to. This is how I used to get up. This is a couple of months. It's me, imitating how I used to do it. So, great, I was able to actually get up. But it took me 2 or 3 months before I even tried to lie on the floor and use this machine. I'll show you in a minute. And this is me, today. I'm sitting straight up in a sitting position. I don't need anything to help me to get up. I can just do it. I can't believe how much my back has gotten stronger, my stomach and everything. So this is the chi machine. I'm going to play the video of it first. Right. So that's all it does. You lie down and it bounces around. Your feet go on it, as you see in the big photo, and it creates this oscillation. Let's see the bigger video here. So you can see my whole body oscillating back and forth all the way, all the joints, all the organs. And you can see right up into my head, is that even that's wobbling back and forth as well. And sometimes I do it with my arms out or my arms up, and so that you get more of these oscillations into the shoulders. But I think this has actually been a big contributor to my recovery. The things they say about it: increases the local blood circulation and oxygen via gentle motion of the whole body. Muscle pain relief, energy increase, mental focus, stable back support alignment. I'm actually standing better now. My standing position is better now than it was, I don't know, 5 or 6 years at least. Promotes lymph drainage, internal massage, release from tension, fatigue and stress, improved breathing. In fact, there's one exercise I do when I'm on it, is that I breathe in and I hold my breath. And so my chest is rocking back and forth, but full of air. So that air is really pushing, helping my chest to loosen up in the extremes as well. And when the machine stops, then you get this feeling of tingling energy through from head to toe. It's a wonderful thing. Yeah, I can't recommend it. Now, some people, you can use it sitting in a chair or in a wheelchair, and you can put your feet down on it, and it will still give some motion. And people also put it onto a table and put their forearms in it, and so the forearms are going back and forth. You have to be a bit careful with it as well. If you're lying down flat, particularly, that your knees are strong enough, because I did put in a pillow underneath my knees to give them support so the knees weren't under strain. And the odd time I get cramp in the calf as well when I go on it. So I just come off it, wait for the cannabis to kick in and continue on. Well, I think that's one of the things that really contributed. And I got the idea from somebody's protocol. I mean, he was using the big vibration machines that you find in gyms, which are quite intense. And I thought, I already had this machine. So I said, well, I'll just give this a try and see if it makes a difference. There's a couple of the other equipment and therapies that I use, the red light equipment. I was having a lot of eye pain, and I was using it on my eye from a distance, and I think it's really helped. I'm using it on my throat and my mouth and that as well. I don't have a setup for doing the whole body, but I'll use it there. So I think it's really helped with that. On the other side then, you've got the shoulder massage machine. So you can work it from the back of your neck to the bottom of your neck, the shoulders, and you can move it, as you can see in the second photo, you can move it right down your back. Now, it is painful to use when you have no muscles. So be careful. Now I can actually use it pretty well. And I think that between this Chi machine, between the Chi machine and this shoulder massager, they have really contributed, because I've actually got muscles on my shoulder blades now, and it's good. Like the tone of my muscles is it's all first class. It's not like I don't have a gym build or anything like that, but you know, I had no well, I can't even remember what they're called anyway. Yeah, I've had the development of muscles everywhere, and on my back particularly, I think it was this and the stimulation of muscles from the Chi machine. Yeah, this was a bit new. This is the electromuscle stimulator. Yeah, I'd heard of this, and I was, yeah, it's sending electric signals into the muscles to contract them, and there's kind of a you know, some people recommend don't use them, but it's really out of ignorance and fear rather than knowledge. So I'm quite used to experimenting and trying things out. So I got one of these units and put it on, and you know, I mean, you know, that's the movements there you can see in it. So that's the muscles contracting. So yeah, I was very dubious, and I'm still not ready to give it a full recommendation. I didn't start using it until I was improving. So I have, yeah, a couple of reservations. What they do say about it, though, when you're, it's used mostly by athletes for muscle recovery and recovery from injury. Um, and it's not known to damage motor neurons, but we already have damaged motor neurons. So we're in a slightly different category. So I used it very slowly over quite a period of time for the last 6 months, because I'm pretty sure that if it was causing any problem, it's going to show up on me, and I'm going to notice that, and then I'm going to stop using. I'm quite confident at this stage that it is really contributing to having to developing my strength. In the tummy muscles, the stomach muscles, if I brace my stomach now, I can't actually push past. I can't push my fingers in there. I wouldn't like to take a punch, but I mean, we talked about it a year ago that my stomach was just like a pillow. There was no resistance in there at all. So I say use with caution. I think there's much further. There's a lot of development that can be made. It's the passive exercise of the muscles, and as it says in the official literature, that it bypasses the noise of the motor neuron system. And I thought that was really interesting description. This is for athletes. So they're even looking at athletes' bodies as having some kind of noise in the motor neuron system. So, and they talk about this as that you get a full contraction of the muscle using electromuscle stimulators, which you don't necessarily do if you're just using your own strength, your own internal motor neuron system. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be investigated with this and explored. And I'm not a health professional. I've taken all my own chances, and it's something that you have to do as well. Have I passed? Well, I've gone too late on time. Where am I on time?
You're okay. You're fine. You're a little, if you could finish up sooner versus later, that would be good. Then we have more time for questions, because we have a lot of questions, but you're doing okay so far.
Great. Compression clothing was another sort of surprise thing. I staked my thumb at one stage, so I had it, and this was when my hand was really flat, and it was very kind of tissuey there, like, and yes, I had I had some sort of compression glove on my hand to prevent further injury after the stave thumb. And after a few days, I took it out, I noticed it actually looked better. And I was a bit surprised about this, as you can imagine. It really wasn't what I was expecting. And I thought about, well, what's actually happened here? What's actually happened? So I don't know how to remove that window from the thing. Anyway, let me go back. I checked it out a little bit and found that athletes use compression when they're training because it gives a passive stimulation, passive exercise to the muscles. They're also used by people with arthritis and immobility problems as well. The compression helps with the blood supply. So it's just a big yes. Why everybody with ALS isn't recommended to use compression clothing from the beginning, I don't know why. I've also found that it reduces fasciculations as well. So it's great. It increases muscle fatigue recovery. So yeah, there's just, you can get it for everything, gloves, tops, just the sleeves, socks, or full leggings as well. The one warning I will give with it, or two, is one, it's better to not to wear it at night when you're asleep, because there is a passive exercise going on with it. It won't injure you, but you might be like me and you'll wake up with big twitches going on because your muscles are still actually active, and you have to take it off. The other one is with the morning with it is with the tops, because several times I was wearing the tops and I was wearing it for too long. And because it's creating a resistance, the compression is creating a resistance, it meant it was making it more difficult for me to breathe. So my breathing was reduced. So I'm more careful with the tops for that reason. But definitely worth getting, and great for the hands, really, really great for the hands. Sauna, I think this is actually more or less my last slide. The sauna, I picked on the sauna because, and this is the photograph is of a kind of home sauna unit, more of a steam chamber than a sauna. But you can sit in that, and there's a unit for pumping steam into it. And I got it because I'd used the sauna in the past, and sauna is well known. It's great for tired muscles, for relieving tired muscles and getting the stress and strain out of them, and that supports their recovery and their health. In Norway, they did a 20-year study of people who used the saunas 2 to 3 times a week and people that didn't. The people who used them, in that category, they had 50% less heart disease than the people that didn't use the sauna. So it actually has a huge overall impact in health. And that was the reason why I did it. Now, there is actually more reason, and I'll read this out because I don't remember it's to do with heat shock proteins. So literally these proteins are generated when we're under strong heat. Heat shock proteins, HSPs, chaperone other cellular proteins, guarding them from going astray, folding improperly, or misassembling while forming larger aggregates. And it's one of the problems in ALS is this misfolding of proteins and then them accumulating. For example, HSP40 delivers a newly formed amino acid chain to HSP70, which grabs the molecule, helps it to fold into its proper functional form, and then release it. So, I mean, if we had enough of that going on, we're working towards some of the curing some of the aspects, the deep aspects of the illness, if we're actually really have that activated. So this is where I am today then. This is a local woods. This is wild garlic. All the flowers there are wild garlic. Somebody with a friend of mine just collecting some wild garlic for making a bit of a fresh pesto. I couldn't stand up and bend over like that. I couldn't bend over at all a year ago. So, it really is possible to heal. It is in your hands. It's not in a doctor's hands. Nobody else is going to heal you. It's really up to you to do it. And there's a great community here to help you to do that. I'll just finish on the short 6-week course on optimum healing state, which is really the state of mind that we need to practice in order to really support the body to healing. We'll be looking at things like using the placebo, practicing small choices, relax, rest and heal, facing stress, breathing and activities, and meditation, stuff we did covered last week. So that'll be starting on Tuesday the 4th. So thank you very much for your time.
Tony, we cannot thank you enough. What a beautiful presentation. You can see how much work and effort that Lazarus has put in over the years. And this is just a slow but sure process. You guys can all do this. That's what I want to say. You can all do this. And the fact that he's also shared his protocol it's on the link on the ALS blog. A couple of people asked about that. If you go to healingals.org, click on the blog, and the link to his protocol is right there. But it was just beautiful. So thank you. And so, Gabby, why don't you get the first question while I'm unmuting Julie?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing quite the inspirational story. This is from Glenn Frick. He asked, are you still working with Dr. Bedlack, and is he monitoring you to possibly be a reversal?
Yeah, he's monitoring me to be a reversal. That's where it is. So he confirmed it. But because I'd had so much fluctuation in my history that, he said, let's let things settle down into a longer term. That was back in December, and I'm still improving. So I'm yeah, but yeah, it's there, it's happening.
Wonderful.
Did you have spontaneous or familiar? Did Dr. Bedlack do any genetic testing on you?
I haven't had any genetic testing. I don't know of any of it happening in the family.
Okay, this is a comment, but I'll do a follow-up question. So Jessie said one of the challenges that I'm not sure, I think she faces is that her cows has emotional breakdowns and very negative personality. You talked a lot about your struggles and, people not supporting you. Do you have any advice for people who are in this situation?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's very difficult. I was suicidal for a long time as well because of the lack of support and that. So, I never argued with my son or shouted at him when he was growing up. And then towards the end of his teenage years, I became very reactive, and it was really horrible. The experience of losing not just the physical abilities, but how we work as a person emotionally and mentally, and the loss and the change involved in that. Nobody's really prepared for it. And I don't think there's enough understanding in not just the physical, but the emotional and mental changes that we face. I don't think there's enough understanding or attention given to that and how to handle that. I've found that cannabis and the way I take it, which is called, upregulating the endocannabinoid system, has really helped to stabilize my moods a lot, and has really given me more ability to manage it. But the PALS has to practice learning to come into a calmer place. Otherwise, never going to come into one. So that there is an action and a work to do there. And I'd say that you should look at the talk from last week, where I'm looking at more of the factors that will support that difficulty.
Tony, your caloric amount per meal in order to kind of get that muscle going again, what would you say it was?
Caloric, I'm sorry.
You don't measure the calories. Okay, no problem.
What is ivermectin, and why do you or were you taking it?
Well, ivermectin, it's derived from a microorganism that lives in the soil in Japan, and they found it during the 70s. And they tested it for different things, and they found it was an amazing anti-parasite drug. It turns out it has very powerful antiviral properties. So I'm taking it as a prophylactic for COVID. It reduces it reduces the severity of COVID. So that's why I'm taking it.
Would CBD oil coming through the feeding tube perform the same result as by mouth, would you say?
Yes, it can. You can put a little bit of CBD oil, only a small amount, inside the mouth as well, and it can be absorbed directly through the mouth. But if you put in too much or too regularly, too often, then it can, yeah, it can be a bit too much for the mouth. So you can put in a small amount that way. Otherwise, through the feeding tube. I still recommend mixing the CBD oil with coconut oil first, because it binds with the coconut oil. So the cannabinoid joins with the fat cell in the coconut oil. That passes through the brain-blood barrier and goes into the central nervous system where it's really needed. And then you're delivering a healthy fat cell and a cannabinoid, and they can actually stay inside the central nervous system until it's needed. So it's like a slow release system. But you can put it through the feeding tube, there's no problem.
So I'm not sure if this is applicable to everybody since people live in all different places, but can you share where or how you order the cannabis capsules, like what brand?
I would love to. I can't though, because it's not a brand.
Oh.
It's something that all I can say is it's locally made, and so I know the quality of the product. But unfortunately, I would love to have a prescription where I could just go along and get it handed over to the counter to me in the chemist. But no, in the protocol online, I describe how to make the capsules, and I describe all of that in some detail there. So it is possible to do. At the very worst, you know, if you're making it at home, and I know lots of people do, is that where they have some cannabis flower, they have to decarboxylate it. They have to heat treat it in the oven for maybe 40 minutes. You need to look at some instructions for doing that, and then it can literally be grinded up and put into a jar of coconut oil, and they can put that, you know, at a half teaspoon at a time, and put it into the tube or into the mouth, whichever, and that will be enough to give a regular, smooth, upregulated supply.
We have several reversals that use it. The people that it's legal in their state, they're public about their use of cannabis. The people that it's illegal, they're not public about their use. But I can tell you that a lot of our ALS reversals are using cannabis.
Question for Tony: do you mix all of those teas together to drink at the same time?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just put it all in together, so no problem.
Okay. I don't know if this was spelled correctly or if I'm just going to butcher the pronunciation, so apologies in advance. How much phosphatidylcholine do you take, and how and do you take coconut oil, and how much?
Phosphatidylcholine. Yeah, I spent 2 months practicing that, so you know.
Oh, good.
You know, now I sound like an expert. I spent a lot of time saying phosphatidylcholine, glycerophosphatidylcholine even. I take about, I've been taking about 3 to 4 grams a day in the smoothie, and I'm getting a new delivery of it. And so I'm going to boost that up a bit. I think it leaves a lot of room to be boosting. And I take about, the coconut oil, I take about 4 grams of that a day as well. 4, no, more than that. No, it's more like 10 grams a day of coconut oil, I think, which isn't a huge amount.
How many smoothies do you drink in a day?
I was drinking 1, and now I'm doing 2. The reason for it is because I'm trying to get all the stuff, all the supplements I take in the smoothie, to spread them throughout the day a little bit more. So yeah, twice a day now. Was there something else?
Yeah, Glenn asked, how do you get your heel down first with drop foot? My toes always hit first.
For that, well, my heel wasn't. How did I do it? I'm not sure whether I can say much more than using the word patience, to be honest. Um, you I'm trying to remember back, and so even when my heel wasn't hitting first, which was true, even then I was still trying to press off with the rest of the foot. So still trying to press off with the toes. So even though the heel wasn't coming, so it was slapping down while I was still pressing off with the toes. And I think that might have been enough to get the foot to start to function better.
And then a lot of people have been asking about the specific dosages of your list of supplements. I know that we had responded in the chat that all of this will be posted on the healingals.org blog, where you can see Tony's entire presentation and go back to and find a lot of the answers to these questions. So, I mean, in answer to those specific dosages, what would you say? Did you follow mainly like what was on the bottle? Like if you were taking NAC, did you do the recommended on the bottle of like, take 2 capsules X amount times a day? Okay.
Yeah, most of the time I just followed the recommended. I mean, the cannabis stuff has just been, an adventure, an ongoing experiment. And I'm still experimenting a little bit with that. Well, recently I went down to, I was using 60% CBD, 40% THC. I was using that as a mix. So I don't use the sativa and the other plant. I don't think of it in that way. I think about it that the strong THC dominant oil or a strong CBD dominant oil, and what proportion I mix the two of them in. So using a higher proportion of CBD and lower THC. I could feel the loss in that. I did feel that I was missing something in it. And when I brought the THC back up again, I found some improvement. But it is, at least in theory, it is possible to play around with these two things if you can get those sources for those two oils.
And then did I read in your protocol that you recommend it being 50-50 of the CBD and the THC?
Yeah, that's why I found what's working best for me. But for somebody else, it could easily be a different thing. And it depends how accustomed that or not accustomed and how they react. I mean, I know people who've never had cannabis before take it and have very little response to it. And other people take it who have had it before and have a big response. So there's no one answer fits all at all. But I think that the 50-50 idea is very rounded. It's a good one to follow, if you can. But saying that, if I couldn't get any CBD or I couldn't get any THC, I would be taking what I could get anyway, because it still makes a big improvement.
When you wear the compression clothing, would you take it off when you nap or sleep?
Yes. Yeah. Well, nap maybe not, because sometimes the nap takes me, I don't take it, But I mean, there's a pair of gloves that I wear, and which are these really thick winter type of gloves, and and I was buying them to protect, because we need to protect from the cold, and I put them on, and I found that they gripped my fingers tighter than the compression gloves that I had, and the design technique in these thick gloves, which were from temperatures of -20 or -30, was compression. So these gloves actually had compression in them, and in that way increasing the blood supply so that the fingers didn't freeze. So sometimes you just need to keep the eyes and the mind open. It's definitely worth it. Don't recommend it sleeping with it. And I don't recommend, there's ones which are socks, so they actually have the foot shape in them. I don't recommend them because they're so difficult to get over the heel and off, and for the benefit of covering the feet. So there are stocking ones, or full length bottoms. So they're the ones that I recommend, not the ones which have the foot part in them. They're just too difficult to use.
Have you had any amalgam fillings removed?
I did, but I had that done 20 years ago.
Okay.
I had 4 or 5. I had them, 20 years ago.
Okay, this question is from Bambi. I feel like Tish will have something to say about it also. What do you think about using a hot tub instead of a sauna?
No, if you have a hot tub, then I'd definitely be using one if I had one. Yeah, you're getting that heat. It's getting into your body. I suppose it's not actually as hot as a sauna, because if it was, you'd be cooking. So there might be some difference over advantages in using a sauna over a hot tub. But definitely, a hot tub, you're going to get good muscle relaxation there and stuff like that. It's definitely better than not doing anything. Yeah.
Are there issues with the chemicals absorbing back into your skin when your pores are so open?
I don't have that much experience with hot tubs, so I suppose that is something that you need to be careful about.
Yeah, if it's a saltwater tub, it's not a problem. It depends on how thick the chlorine are. Some of you have super low chlorine, it probably won't bother you. But if you have a chlorine, a lot of people have had reactions. They have a negative reaction to being in the chlorine. So it depends. Yes, but in general, you want to avoid chlorine hot tubs.
Also, in general, you sweat more in the sauna, and the sweating, getting that out, is a big part of that. And so I think it's more important to sweat more and not absorb any chemicals that may be in the water.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing I have is really a steam chamber than sauna, because sauna is dry heat. And if I could have a sauna, I would. But yeah, there's limits. And because the steam doesn't have the same penetration as the dry heat, you can't tolerate it at the same level. But you've got to work with what you've got. And so if you have a hot tub, yeah, you use that.
I had a farm and had animals. I used ivermectin to deworm my horses, cows, dogs, etc. It had to be very careful on the dosage because, it's pretty toxic stuff. So I was just curious how much ivermectin you use, because that's actually in all heartworm medicine that we give our dogs is ivermectin.
I follow the protocol which is given by American Association of Practitioners and Surgeons, which is an organization founded in the 1940s with 4,000 doctors. So they have a protocol for COVID prophylactics and early treatment. And so I followed the dosage which they give, which for me is 16 milligrams.
16 milligrams. That's
I mean, there's ivermectin. I mean, you're right about it. I mean, it's absolutely a cheap solution, and yeah, it's found on farms all over the world. It's been used extensively in Africa and the Middle East and Far East for treating, and South America as well, for treating parasites. In human beings, there's like over 4,000 prescriptions of it for human beings have been used. So there's a long experience of using it with humans as well. So and I trust the source, the American Association Practitioners and Surgeons. They're not messing around.
16 milligrams.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
It depends on your weight, though. So you do need to look up the protocol for that. It depends entirely on your weight.
Tony, will you be taking the
I'm not going to take the I don't think it's necessary. I'm satisfied with the protocol and my health, my capacity of fighting the illness. So I'm going to stick with what I know.
I think it's up to 8,000 now, but at the time it was 7,700 dead, 330,000 injuries. And that's the European database. We're over 3,300 deaths in the US. So these are from the, so they haven't been tested, and understand this has not been approved by the FDA. They have been approved on an emergency basis. I think it's pretty irresponsible of our medical community to be, you know, basically experimenting on something that has not gone through the whole FDA process. It has only gone through an emergency approval process. So to me, most of the people I talk to says, hold off, wait until it's gone through the emergency approval, the full approval process. But with this number of deaths, I think the people that have really done the research are shocked. And a ton of, like you're talking about, I don't know, tens of thousands of neurological conditions appearing after that. So that's my 2 cents. You guys have to really do your research before you choose one way or the other. It is essential that you, before you put anything in your body, that you research it. And that includes all these supplements as well.
Okay, Rob, you had a comment real quick before we go on to Susan.
One of the 9 things that all the extreme reversals or extreme remissions in cancer have, so they all make up their own mind. And that's not a typical cancer patient or ALS patient. Same thing you just said. And secondly, we all will face subtle or even not so subtle shaming for not wanting to do it. And I've made up my own mind, I'm not going to do it. So, you know, look into it. And yeah, like, I just want to echo that comment that you risk being shamed for not doing it. But this ivermectin is, I think, very notable.
Thank you,
I'm
John.
not a doctor.
Once you do more research, like, I'm not shamed because I have done so much research. I'm very confident with my decision. So if you feel that pressure, do more research and get confident with your decision. I talked to a functional doctor from Mexico 2 days ago, and he said he has 1,500 patients and only about 5, and because they were pressured by their family to get it. But the other 1,500 haven't gotten it because he's in a functional practice, and he keeps sending them articles. So they're doing their research. So that's great.
I did have a question also, because someone else had put it in the chat about your Chi machine. Is it a big difference of buying one that's like $140 off of Amazon versus the $250? Because there were several to pick from, and people were already Googling it and trying to find a good Chi machine.
I mean, the one I have, I bought 20 years ago. So it's one of the first ones that was made. So there's loads of different models about them since then. I don't know what the difference are between different models. With mine, there's just a timer on it, which is a spring timer. It's not even electronic. It's just a timer on it, and that's it. So yeah, I can't really recommend or not recommend any of them online. It's not complicated technology, so you should be pretty safe with what you buy. Yeah. Maybe there's some bad, cheap ones there which aren't that good, but I don't know them either.
Okay, I was just putting it out there for others.
Great. So we're 8 minutes over. Suzanne, I think, was next.
Hi, yeah, I have a question my husband does about microdosing. What is microdosing, and what's the amount and what's the effect?
Well, microdosing is one of the more exceptional things that I take. Microdosing is using very small amounts of psilocybin, which is a hallucinogen. Now, in using very small doses of it, I don't experience any hallucinogenic effects. But what I've found that it's really helped my mind work faster and respond quicker. It's really helped with my communication. Like a year ago, I remember that I would start saying something, and then halfway through it, I would forget the beginning of what I was saying, and I wouldn't know the end of it either. That rarely happens now. And it's the phosphatidylcholine and the microdosing with psilocybin, which have made that difference.
Okay, and then, so where do you get that?
Well, it grows wild in Ireland, actually. There are psilocybin mushrooms in Ireland, and it grows wild here. So a friend of mine gave me some. So I don't know, where you can get it otherwise. I mean, microdosing, I don't. It's not something I do every day, but it is something that I really find makes a positive difference. And you need to have the mindset for it as well, that you're doing this for healing, and you're engaging with it in a healthy way. You're not doing excess amounts of it and trying to, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, it seems popular now, and I know that Michael Pollan has written a book about it. But
I know there's been a couple of studies in the States about treating chronic depression and chronic addiction with microdosing, and they've had massive success. One of the things that I think we need to understand in having ALS is that we are having a traumatic experience. We're living in an ongoing trauma. And so we need ways to help relieve that trauma. And that trauma impacts on our minds. And so microdosing is one of the things which actually helps to relieve that trauma.
Okay, thank you.
Mike S.
Yes, hi. I'm calling on behalf of an ALS victim who is unfamiliar with a lot of this stuff. And I wondered I have a twofold question. Number one, how does one go about getting either a good functional neurologist that's well-versed in this sort of stuff, or a health coach that's well-versed in it? And number two, I wanted to know what Lazarus thinks about incorporating stem cells into his Get Well protocol.
Unfortunately, I don't have any good answers. To get the good doctors and medical support seems to be a very hard thing to do all round. I'm in the west of Ireland, so the possibilities are quite limited here. I went for a functional nutritionist, and she didn't actually know what the herbs and things that I was taking even. So I think that's a big challenge that a lot of people have, and I think a broader community answer will be better than mine, which I don't have really one. And what was the second part, sorry?
I wanted to know if you had broached the idea of incorporating stem cell therapy into your Get Well protocol.
I haven't really considered it. I mean, I suppose, if there was one that worked well and which was financially available to me, then I might consider it. Otherwise, it's not something I know a whole lot about. It's not really available to me in the first place, so I haven't learned much about it.
Well, what is your relationship with Dr. Bedlack? Is this something that could be done virtually to set up a relationship with a doctor like that that's well respected?
Dr. Bedlack's sort of renowned because he follows cases of people who have reversed. So late last year, somebody told him about me, and he got in touch with me. And so I sent him all my medical files, and he confirmed the diagnosis of ALS, and said basically, let's wait before we confirm you as a reversal. So that's really where it's at. And then if I get confirmed as a reversal and that happens, then I become part of the research team, or really one of the subjects of it, I suppose. So that's all I've.
By the way, we've had 5 or 10 people go to see Dr. Bedlack, and every single one of them has been disappointed. He is not a functional neurologist. He is not a functional medical doctor. He is a traditional neurologist. It is wonderful. He's great at confirming reversals. And that's where his papers is, that's where his expertise is. But he personally has not treated one ALS. He's treated them, but he hasn't assisted in them. So people, some of the reversals go to him to get measured, but he doesn't have one reversal under his care. In other words, that he is responsible, his care is responsible for that reversal. You also asked for stem cells. Every single, we have monitored 30 reversals very, very closely. We know of many more. So far, we do not know of any permanent reversal with stem cells. Because the stem cells they work temporarily and then they seem to die. So you have to do this overall broad program, such as Lazarus is doing now, to really heal permanently. We have reversals that are 90, 95, 98% better right now. And they have taken this broad protocol approach. The stem cells so far have not been successful in any of these permanent reversals that we know of. If you know of any, I would like to know. Definitely temporary reversals, no question. We have them.
I have one more part of this. I went to a holistic. I talked to a holistic medicine doctor who didn't have any knowledge about this area, but he strongly advised consulting a functional neurologist. He said that they have had great results. And even though he didn't know about any per se, I just wonder what your opinion on working with someone like that is to arrest this disease.
I can tell you overall our experience with, first of all, if you go to the Where Do I Start document, there are some ideas on how to find a good functional medicine doctor, naturopath, or functional neurologist in your area. They are not all the same. And our experiences, the people that have gone to them, it's still over 90% of what you do and less than 10% of what your functional neurologist or functional doctor does. If you look at what Lazarus has done, he has taken his health into his own hands. He has done a ton of research and a lot of experimentation, trying different things. This is working, this isn't, you take it for X amount of time. And he just, some of the things he takes because he knows he's good for them. So our experience is this is coming from the PALs. The PALs are the ones that are healing themselves. It's not the functional doctors definitely help. The CALs definitely help, but it's the PALs that does the work and does the research. And the people who have less respect for the doctors and the neurologists seems to do better. The people who are saying, well, my doctor says this, in general, do worse. You need to be able to question your doctor. Well, what about this? It's a great start. They have a lot of knowledge, but it's this teamwork thing. Well, this doesn't feel right. Why are you suggesting this? What about these three things? And they will check it out. It can be a team approach, but I'm going to tell you, it's over 90% you.
We have enough time for probably about 3 more questions, and then we're going to have to start our close. I apologize, but go right ahead.
Like 20 minutes overdue. So if we could do a rapid fire question and answer, I think we have
Rob, we have Susan, and we have John.
And then let's stop.
Okay. Go right ahead, Rob.
Okay, yeah, great. First of all, this is absolutely fantastic. Really appreciate your story last week and this. 2 quick comments or questions. One is that book you shared last week, Extreme Remission. I got it as soon as I read about it last week, and I highly recommend it to everyone here. Great concept. Secondly, you mentioned ivermectin. Like everybody else, I go back and forth on the issue of the COVID-19 vaccination. My mainstream neurologist said, absolutely get that. The risks are low, and you're in a high risk category. You should do it. And he's a well-respected neurologist. But I have a local functional medicine doctor who is somewhat skeptical, or very skeptical, recommended ivermectin. And I've been doing that since March. I take 4.5 tablets on the 1st of the month, 4.5 on the 3rd, and that's it. I started today, the 3rd month, or yesterday. You said something that really struck me, which is very interesting, that it's an antiviral. I took 6 months of an antiviral in an experiment with NIH to knock my HERV-K virus, and it's actually junk DNA, down. and it didn't work for 6 months. At the very end, I finally reduced it. And what you said today, it might be that my HERV-K virus dropped dramatically at the end of that 6 months because of the ivermectin, which could be a remarkable concept. So anyway, 40 to 100% of all ALS patients have this HERV-K, and they call it a virus, but it's also really more like junk DNA. It's very notable. So I urge everyone to explore ivermectin as a prophylactic on, on COVID-19, and it also might have other benefits for ALS patients. So somebody wrote in the chat, it's HERV, H-E-R-V, as in Victor -K. So again, thank you very much. Fantastic presentation. I hope you get to be one of the reversals here soon. Appreciate it.
Yes, John, go right ahead.
All right, just real quick. So, what caught me, but Lazarus, thank you so much for this presentation. It really provides hope for all of us. But when you show me the picture of your legs, I'm limb onset, and the picture of your legs look just like mine. And I've gotten to the point where slowly I haven't been able to walk, and so I'm in a wheelchair now. Were you ever at that point where you could not walk, or at least didn't feel safe to put?
Yeah, I mean, I was in a mobility frame, a walker. I've used that, and it was one time I was admitted because I had some extreme exacerbations as well, and where I'd lost complete functionality in my right leg, and I'd be on the walker. And I was I'd been admitted for because I was living alone, and admitted to a hospital. And it was either the nurse brings the bedpan to me, or I use the walker to get to the bathroom.
But you could use a walker though.
I could use I was swinging my right leg forwards and then leaning on the wall. My right leg wasn't working. I was swinging it from my upper body forwards, and then just trying to. And I mean, it was a mess. I mean, I was sweating by the time I got to the bathroom. Yeah. But I was just using my pride to motivate me to make the effort. And I knew that if I left this for the doctors to do something for me, it was over. That was what was in my mind. So even though it was an extreme effort, just to stimulate it so that it has something to, it has a chance of stimulating back into health again. And I think that everybody with ALS should be getting some sports massage treatment or physiotherapy treatment where you relax and the therapist does the movements for you. So your body is doing these movements, but not using the stress and strain of the muscles, because the therapist is actually doing that, but it's still stimulating the muscles.
Right now, your back and forth motion reminds me of what I'm like in the pool trying to simulate walking, but it's back and forth. The only other thing that I had was, Rob, you mentioned a book that Lazarus had suggested. What was the name of that book again? Is Rob still on? Maybe not.
Rob, you have to unmute yourself, Rob.
Extreme Remission.
Okay, thank you, Rob.
You're welcome.
That's all I had. That's all I had. Thanks so much, Lazarus. I'm going to come to Ireland to visit you, man.
All right. Thanks for your question, John.
Thank you so much. This has been so helpful, and we went 2 hours, which we don't usually do, but everyone had so many questions that we wanted to take the time. So thank you for taking the time to come.
Whatever support or insights I have, just to try and take one thing and to move a little bit forwards with it, try and take something else, move a little bit forwards with it. Just take it gently and keep pursuing your own health and healing.
Thank you, Lazarus. That was a wonderful presentation.